YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and guess what? We're going to take our first look at free-for-all. That's right, free-for-all makes its return, not having been in the game since Medieval 2. That's a long time ago, folks. What was Medieval 2? Was that 2005? 6? Somewhere in that area, I think Medieval 2 was. So it has been a long time since Total War has seen any free-for-all multiplayer. Free-for-all is actually a really interesting mode. Back in Rome 1 and Medieval 2, free-for-all was had two different ways that it could be played. It could be played last man standing, which means that simply the last player alive wins, no matter how many units, or it could be played in a scored resolution. And what that meant in the old games was that whatever player got the most kills, and remember that kills on routing units count, that was who won. Well, if you think about implementing free-for-all in Warhammer, last man standing probably isn't what you want, because people will probably try and kite around with flying units and all that other kind of nonsense. So last man standing isn't an option. There's only one kind of free-for-all, and it's scored resolution. However, the scored resolution isn't exactly like it used to be for one obvious reason. Back in the older Total Wars, you didn't have this crazy nonsense with monsters and flying stuff and all that. So the way they're doing it now is damage. So each unit has a health. And whether that unit has 100 men in it or it has one hero, they each have a health number, an amount of health they have. And that's what gets tracked, is how much health did you take away from your enemies. So what that does is it creates a free-for-all game where players are incentivized to be aggressive and cause damage rather than sitting back and trying to camp and wait till the whole thing's over. It's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. But I think that it's probably the right premise. If it does, whoops, I selected the wrong battle. Or no, this is it. Okay, okay, Creative Assembly hasn't finished a screen that actually shows you all the armies on the screen. Okay, my bad. Yeah, so you can see how the deployment works here. I'm in the yellow, and then my opponents are going to be here. And then all the maps for free-for-all are specifically designed to kind of give you this more arena-type feel. Now, remember, I want to talk a little bit about strategy here. We'll let you get some close-ups of my army while we're talking. Free-for-all is about damage. So in order to know, to think about that is like, what units should you bring that are going to be able to cause the most damage? So I brought the Lizardmen. It was just, at the time when I joined the battle, no one had picked the Lizardmen, so I picked them. Someone ended up doubling the Lizardmen, but that's why I picked them. So I brought Krokgar on his Mount Grimlock, because these guys can absolutely tear apart enemy monsters and lords who are mounted. And then next to him, I've got a Scar Veteran on a Carnosaur. So it's the same thing. Basically, these two combine to make an absolutely obliterating lord or monster combination. I brought 4 Feral Bastillodons because these guys are going to combine to really just pound the crap out of enemy infantry and get to skirmishers. And then I've got 2 of these Bastillodons with a solar engine, which is an artillery unit to give me some way to fire from range. And then my infantry is just 2 Saurus warriors and a few skink cohorts, because I didn't want to bring a bunch of infantry for my opponent to get easy kills on with monsters or artillery, but I did need some infantry. So 4 skink cohorts, 2 Saurus with cudgels instead of the spears. So that's what I've brought in terms of my army. And my opponent is the Dark Elves over here. He's brought exactly what I wanted to see, which is a crap load of infantry. So my Bastillodons are going to have a field day in this. And then Malekith, if he comes anywhere near the ground, he's going to get hit by 2 Carnosaurs. So despite him being really good on his dragon here, he is going to get jacked up if he comes down into combat. He's got some shades here. These are dual weapon, armor piercing, really good missile damage. He's moving them into the woods, and he's got a few Dark Riders too. Dark Riders are probably a good pick. I need to turn this off too, where we can... I'll turn that off at some point so it doesn't see it. But anyway, you got your scoreboard up here. It keeps track of the player who has caused the most damage, so you can see the different players. The High Elf player and another Lizard is going to face off over here. I didn't want to rush to the center of the map because it's just a good way to get myself surrounded. So I finally get on the scoreboard with my solar engine. My opponent here is going to bring Malekith up and do a breath attack, but he should have targeted that attack specifically on the infantry because my Bastillodon absorbed some of it. You can see that Knight's Shadow here he's racking up a pretty big score early on, which he might as well enjoy it. Because when I get to his infantry, the score is going to start to even out really quickly. So over here in the forest, I'm charging his bleak swords, and I'm trying to get to his shades. So here comes my skink cohort. Skink cohorts are not a very good infantry, but like I said, I'm really about causing damage here. And the way I'm going to get damage caused is with the monsters. My infantry is just for support. So you can see the Bastiladons immediately just plow through his lines and get into the second tier. And then Krokgar and his Scar veteran are going to come over here and silence these shades. Malekith is probably scared to come down to the ground, and I don't blame him. So my 2 solar engines are sitting back. I'm not using these guys real well at the moment, so I should have been targeting them better. But you can see that my Bastiladons are doing exactly what I wanted them to. Look at all the damage we're causing. So let's go take a look at the score. So I've already rocketed up to first place, even though I was way down at the bottom, because I'm causing so much damage to the enemy army here. And that's exactly my goal with this one. So Lanzo here, though, with the High Elves just took the lead because he is apparently causing some withering damage to the Lizardmen over here. He's got quite a few skirmishers. He's got several Lothern Sea Guard, and he's also got this Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower, and the Lizardmen brought a ton of infantry up against him, so he's actually kind of playing into the Elves' hands here, in my opinion, in the sense that the Elves have all these skirmishers to help pick apart Lizardmen infantry. But in my corner, I'm keeping the game close, though, by just absolutely savaging the Dark Elves right now with all of these monsters. So, like I said, the Lizards are a nightmare for anybody who brings a lot of infantry and doesn't come up with a good way to take down monsters. So that's going to be the problem for anybody facing the Lizardmen, is if you leave your guard down and the Lizards bring an army like I did here, and you didn't bring the right units to deal with those monsters, you are going to get curb stomped. Because it's just impossible for infantry to put that much beating on a 140 armor target. You can see Malekith here in big trouble because he's getting hit by 2 Carnosaurs who both have a lot of armor piercing and anti-large damage. Not to say that Malekith won't cause damage, he will. His attack is withering. It's very, very good. His Dark Riders were trying to attack my Bastiladons with the solar engine. Yeah, good luck with that. You're going to need a lot more than Dark Riders to get through there. He did get his, what do you call it, the murderous prowess there. He finally got that boost, but it's mostly because of me killing him and not the other way around. He hasn't gotten a ton of kills, maybe just some of my cheap infantry. You can see that Krokgar has actually taken a beating, and I've already had to use his cold one, or cold-blooded ability, where he gets to do some healing. So Malekith did do some damage. The infantry around him did some damage. Some of my Bastiladons are running amok, which means that they're out of my control, but they're still doing damage, which is still helping me up the score. But you can see that Malekith had to run away. He just can't stay down here in this kind of fight. He's going to bring a breath attack that I end up dodging mostly, so it didn't end up being too big of a deal there. But yeah, you can see my monsters just racking up the score. I'm ahead right now. Night Shadow is in second place, so he did get a lot of damage caused to some of my monsters, which kind of helped him catch up, but my monsters are still very much alive and capable of causing a lot more damage. And the last place that he wants to be is in a blob fight against all these monsters, and that's exactly where he is. So, not where you want to be in life. Infantry blob versus armored monsters. And honestly, Dark Elf infantry, other than like maybe the Black Art Corsair and some Witch Elves and stuff would do decent against Lizardmen infantry, but the kind of infantry he brought to bring up against me here, I don't think that was the smartest pick. His infantry, none of it is high damage infantry, and so even against an infantry heavy lizard army, I still would have been able to inflict a lot of damage. Look at that solar engine firing point blank. So I'm ahead by a pretty fair margin right now, but this high elf player over here is working on slaughtering Mazdamundi, who is going to feed him a ton of points because Mazdamundi has so many hit points. So this guy is going to really start tanking up the score for the high elves, who have a Phoenix and a Frostheart Phoenix, a Flamespire Phoenix and a Frostheart Phoenix, and the Phoenix Guard, which is kind of a cool theme he has going here. So Mazdamundi is getting absolutely destroyed right now, and that just fed the score to Lanzo, and basically he jumped right up behind me again. And now this remaining Feral Bastiladon with the Revivification Crystal is going to be also feeding him some points, and same thing with this Sora Scar veteran, because now they're all singled out, and the High Elves definitely have the tools to finish off these high hit point units here. So you can see that Lanzo is very quickly going to take the lead away from me because of what's left over here. So again, remember, this game is all about damage. It's not about who's standing. It's not about how pretty it looked. It's who causes the most health damage in the end. And so again, that's why I picked the army I did. And depending on what other factions, so like for instance, if I took Skaven, I might have focused with some artillery or something, depending on the map, because you can cause a lot of damage with the artillery. And it won't give the enemy a whole lot of damage if they kill it in return, because artillery doesn't have a lot of hit points. But you know, like if you come into a free-for-all match with a crap load of Skaven infantry that's just throwaway infantry, you might just be feeding easy health damage to the winner. So it makes you reconsider the armies you're going to bring, how you're going to play them, and what your strategy is going to be. So that's one thing I like about free-for-all. It may not be the thing for you. I may not play free-for-all every time. I do like it. I think I'm going to play it a lot more. Because, it just changes the nature of the game a little bit. So you can see I'm ahead, but now all of his units are routing, and my monsters are not easily catching up to continue to cause damage. This is where a very fast-moving unit held in reserve could be a huge benefit to you in free-for-all. So like if I had a feral cold one that had just been hiding, I could bring them out and run down all of these routing units and get a whole bunch of extra points. Look at that. That's 3,800 points walking off the battlefield, 968, 1571. All of these are points just walking off the battlefield. That's why I'm trying to chase with my monsters, but my monsters just aren't doing a very good job of catching up and getting me some more damage points. So you see like right there I got a charge. Look at that. It didn't count. What kind of bull crap is that? Pretty sure routing units count, because there it goes, it finally counted me a little bit from somewhere, and all these units around me are routing, so I'm not really sure why some of that didn't count. But anyway, I'm now going to have to face off against the High Elf player, because the High Elf player is wrapping up what's left of the Lizardmen, and like I said, based on what I showed you earlier, he's now taken the lead, and he's going to take a pretty comfortable lead. When you look at what forces he has left, he's got a few Lothern Sea Guard who are going to be low on ammo. He has a couple of Phoenix units, which are pretty healthy. They don't have a ton of hit points, but they have a lot, so that's one way for me to rack up some score, would be to kill the Phoenixes. And then he has Teclis here with 1,900 hit points, and Teclis is going to be pretty useless in melee. He's a wizard, and by this point I have to assume he's probably used a fair portion of his Winds of Magic, which is good for me. And his Lothern Sea Guard continue to hunt down routing enemies. These High Elf units look freaking brilliant. I mean, there's no two ways around it. They look awesome. And then the Phoenixes look freaking amazing too. Lots of really cool units. Those Phoenix Guard, another absolutely amazing looking unit. Let's find the Phoenix Guard. Here they are. That red color on their armor and their cloaks, just absolutely beautiful. So anyway, that's what's left of the Wood Elves. I didn't notice at first that he still had this Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. So he only has two of the little no, all three of them are still intact. He does have all three. That's not good, because the Eagle Claw is actually pretty good against large units like this, but I also have my solar engines. But the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower does outrange me just a little bit. So I'm going to bring my solar engines forward. I love the skinks hanging off the side of there with their javelins. Looks freaking cool. So I'm going to bring up the solar engines, and we're going to get ready for a face-off. I didn't know my opponent had that Eagle Claw, so that's why I was sitting here. I was like, well, I'm just going to let my monsters rest a little bit. And then once he opens up with the Eagle Claw, I realize, like, crap, man, I gotta do something. I can't just sit back and take damage. So here comes the first shots. And he does have his Eagle Claw in the anti-large mode here, and look how accurate that thing is, pouring in fire into my Bastiladon with the solar engine. So like I said, I'm definitely not gonna sit around and take that. So I'm looking at my targets. My solar engine should be able to pretty easily hit these Lothern Sea Guard, which have 3,000 hit points. I targeted the wrong, well, actually this unit here in the center, and it worked. So I racked up a little bit of damage, but he's causing a lot of damage to me with his Eagle Claw, and he's also basically got Krokgar in his sights here too. Krokgar is darn near dead. I don't know how he isn't at this point. My Scar Veteran's still pretty healthy, but Krokgar's in trouble, so I'm going to move him into the woods to give him a little bit of cover. And my Bastiladon with the solar engine is taking a beating here as well, and I don't have much ammo left. I don't think I do, at least. Yeah, I've got 10 ammo on that one. There you go. Yeah, that solar engine's not bad. It's crashing home, getting me a little bit of damage. That one missed and actually hit the Eagle Claw, which was perfect. So my opponent's about 1,000 ahead of me in terms of the score, so I've got to make up 1,000 damage, and it's going to be pretty tough. I can definitely kill all his units, but some of his units are going to rout and run off the map without me being able to kill them all. And so it's a matter of whether or not I'm going to be able to make up the difference. And the more I sit back and let his Sea Guard fire and stuff like this, it's just probably going to favor him more. So I'm going to be forced to charge forward. I was wanting to use my artillery to its advantage, but he's just climbing ahead as I continue to fire my artillery. My regrouped Saurus warriors are making their way across the battlefield, completely exhausted, very weak. But yeah, we had some good hits with the Bastillodon solar engines. They've gotten a pretty nice number of kills, all things considered. But like I said, I can't sit back and let this Sea Guard just fire all of its ammo. You can see that he's still 1,000 points ahead of me. So I haven't been able to make up any of that gap. It's time for me to charge. I did notice my charge is a little bit discombobulated though, so I'm going to get all my monsters together and do a little more organized charge here, because what we need to do is just crash in and start destroying units one by one. And if his phoenixes want to come down and fight, they can. I feel pretty confident that we can wreck his phoenixes. So there, we're going to easily plow through his spears. The phoenixes are going to come down. I've got Krokgar and the Scar Veteran. I'm going to get back here real quick and shut down the Sea Guard that was firing at me, and then the Phoenix Guard are going to try and crash into me as well. Krokgar doesn't have his cold-blooded anymore, but he does have the ability that gives him some physical resistance, and it's going to make him last absurdly long considering how dead he is, basically. You can see we crashed in. We gained about 100 points in the score, and the Phoenixes come down to the ground here, and a lot of his Phoenix Guard is under a lot of attack here too, so he's not going to like that. I'm going to bring my solar engines into combat because I don't want to hit myself with a stray shot. The Phoenixes then decide to come after Krokgar. I used his ability a moment ago, and it kept him alive a little longer, but Krokgar is near routing here. But once his Phoenixes get on the ground, they do not like fighting, and the Teclis gets caught by the Scar Veteran here and darn near killed. And that evens up the fight a little more for me. I'm now only about 500-ish points behind. So my Scar Veteran using his abilities. Krokgar routes. Comes off over here to the side of the map. Miraculously for me, comes back from routing. So I now have that as an option. His Phoenixes here are pinned up against this pillar, and my monsters are just absolutely working them. It almost looks like the Scar Veteran's trying to take a crap on that one. Like literally, like keeps lifting his tail up like he's gonna just drop a big diarrhea crap all over him. Anyway, the score is getting closer. It's still about 500 separate though. And Teclis won't come anywhere near me. He's got 900 hit points that I feel pretty confident I could capitalize on. These Phoenixes still have a lot of hit points. This one lands, I use my ability, so I keep the physical resistance up, and Krokgar manages to get in a hit here before he dies, but then he does die. But the score now becoming more even, only about 100 apart, because I'm able to get so much damage done on these Phoenix units. That Phoenix just got stomped on by the Scar Veteran. My Bastillodons start to rout. This is bad news for me. It's not looking good. If I can't hold my leadership together, I could still lose this, and I'm still just over 100 points behind. My Scar Veteran is rampaging, and he's the only thing I have left at the moment. So this is going to end up being an incredibly close fight. Because now my opponent's regrouping. He's going to actually start putting up some nice damage. I can't get these archers. But the Scar Veteran just continues to rampage, and my Bastillodons turn around and decide to come back into the fight. I've got one feral, and then there's another feral Bastillodon running rampage back here. But the solar engines have come back, and that's going to help me quite a lot. They're going to fire in. This blob that's surrounding the Scar Veteran is going to be their target, and hopefully they're going to be picking up enemies as they fire in. So there you see that. So that's helping me catch back up once again. Very, very close fight. My opponent, though, got a lot of damage done on the Scar Veteran, and now he's about 500 ahead again. And really, Teclis is my only option at this point. I have to kill Teclis. If his army breaks and Teclis gets off the battlefield without me killing him, my opponent's going to win because he's ahead in terms of damage. So Teclis really needs to be my target, but he's fast. I can't catch him. But I can shoot him with the solar engine. He's going to use Flock of Doom, which won't do anything to my monsters per se. So that helped when I shot him right there. It definitely helped me catch up a little ground, but I'm still 500-ish behind. I really have to kill Teclis. See, I got a couple of misses there. But he doesn't have any other units left, really, other than these Sea Guard are about to finish off their last volley, so he doesn't have a lot of units left to cause damage. Like I said, this is all going to be about whether or not I actually get to kill Teclis or if he routes. The Sea Guard just took a shot. Whew! Teclis just had that one buzz by his face. But yeah, these two units are rampaging. I can't control them. And Teclis is faster than they are, but you know, he has to face me at some point. But if he faces me, then I win. You know what I mean? So he's probably hoping at this point that Teclis would just rout, but he's not. I don't know. I don't think you have the option to withdraw a unit from battle in free-for-all. I would hope not, at least. Look at this. Cue up the Jurassic Park thing here.
This action does not have my consent.
That's what I think of Teclis running away. No, he's doing exactly what he should, though. Like I said, if Teclis runs away and manages to rout, then Lanzo is going to take home the victory. But right here, he charged into the Feral Bastillodon. Ooh, just not the right move. Teclis is going to get pooped on by these big monsters. The Bastillodon doesn't have good leadership, but Teclis is not going to cause any significant damage to the Bastillodon. That's the point at which Teclis gets caught, and he gets rammed by several, and that ram right there just put me in the lead. So that last ram right there, when Teclis routed, was literally what won me the battle. That last ram from the Bastillodon put me ahead in terms of damage. That's how close that was. So my opponent just about won that, even without being the last man standing, which that's kind of, to me, what makes free-for-all interesting. The battle is longer, there's a little more to it, and the strategy is different. So I had 26% of my forces remaining, but I scored 602. That's interesting. His score was higher, and his score came down for some reason at the end. I guess I don't fully understand how that scoring works. Interesting. Because his score was higher. Maybe when you die, it takes a certain number of points away so that there's some reason to be the last one standing, but it can also go up the points. Maybe that was it, or something to that order. Because that last charge was really what won me the game there. So pretty cool. Fun battle. Can't believe I won it, actually. I totally didn't expect to win it. But look at that. 39% of the Dark Elves got off the battlefield alive. So again, that's where I was saying that if I would have had fast-moving units to chase down those survivors, you can get a lot of extra points to rack up that way. So yeah, Sea Just here. Just his army didn't end up getting him a ton of kills. And then mine, though, this one was definitely a specifically designed army to wreck lots of infantry, and it ended up working out for me. So look at the kills here on the Saurus Scar Veteran and Krokgar. These two guys were just absolute beast. And then these Bastillodons with the solar engine also doing some very nice work. So awesome, good stuff. Hope y'all enjoyed the first FFA. I'm really liking FFA so far. I want to learn more about it and see how it plays out, see if anything cheesy pops up. I'm sure it could. Because it's all based on damage. But anyway, curious to see what you all think. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I will see you all soon on another episode of Total War Warhammer 2 as we fight some online battles.